would be like, that's fucking stupid. So in a week's time, I could save avalanches and earthquakes.
How in the world would you save an avalanche?
Well, if you had a big, well, I guess it's not an avalanche. I guess it's just snow in general.
You just build a big wall.
I could save everyone from having heart attacks when you shovel. Shoveling's like the fifth dangerous thing in America.
You can preemptively build walls where the avalanches might occur.
Not avalanche. That was not what I meant.
People do suffer heart attacks quite often.
I just said that. Snow. That's what I mean. Think of all the lives you'd save with the tarp.
I mean, believe it or not, there's a thing called a snowblower.
Okay. That's a Band-Aid approach. I'm trying to anyway.
So what would you pitch then? You have 30 seconds to pitch this. You know, you're going and you're like, I'm
on Shark Tank.
Hello, sharks.
Yeah, I'd say, do you want to have a heart attack while shoveling? No? Okay. Put a big tarp on your driveway and have it be heated and it will melt the snow and you can be inside with your family. So you even need 30 seconds.
The heated tarp actually has some legs to it.
A utility.
That could maybe work. But if someone's like, well, all I have is a regular tarp and a smart car, how am I going to pull all this snow off?
Well, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
That could be a problem.
How you feeling today?
I feel good. Chat looks like they're ready to go. I'm ready to go. We're going to finish strong. There is a disgusting amount of money up for grabs, and we're gonna get some of it here.
Well, sure is, man. Happy to have you guys with us. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive, final one of the season, the 2023-2024 season. We'll be back, and I'll be doing betting content for the preseason. Say what you will, that is enjoyable. So what? August.
Well, I'll be in the college football streets too.
Yeah, you'll be there. I mean, we got a ways to go, though. This is it. We're happy to have you guys with us and thankful that you've decided to make the Stokastic.com YouTube channel your daily destination for daily fantasy sports content, information, and entertainment. They told me to say that.
Did they? It sounded good.
They did. That'd be crazy.
No.
But hey, let's talk football. San Francisco 49ers, 2-point favorites against the Chiefs, 47.5 point total. Before we do, though, if you don't mind, one last time, take a single second, atone for your sins here on a Sunday, afternoon, and hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. All that stuff goes a long way for us, and we appreciate you greatly for it. Only takes a second. Hit that thumbs up. Let's make it happen. So, Ben, 2-point spread. Look, it's the Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl. You're gonna, last year with the Super Bowl, you had a lot of highly skilled players as well. It wasn't super easy to fit whoever you wanted into lineups. It's really no different with this one. You've got Purdy, you have McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, sure, you look at the Chiefs and you go, well, they don't have the same potent 1-2 punch in Kelsey and Hill as they did a couple of years ago. Sure. But they still have three guys that are, the predominant producers in that offense. And then on the other side, you have four players if you want to include Kittle. I'm just saying skill players, not even quarterbacks. So you have what? How many guys? What do we have? Like 9 players here? Probably 9 players where you go, hey, these are the main contributors. And any one of these 9 guys could have a huge game and be viable at captain or be needed just in any spot of your lineup, even in the flex.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you look at it. So you take 9 players, you just mentioned them, and they're the 9 most expensive, no surprise, but they're the 9 most expensive DraftKings players. And when you break it down, you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got 2 tight ends, you've got 2 running backs, and you've got 3 wide receivers. So it's really every position, basically for each team, has a guy, a real guy, that really could be the best player on the field on any given day.
So I figure since you and I did a first look show on Wednesday, we could do a little and you got Eric Lindquist, Matt Gajewski following this up with Live Before Lock, right? They'll take an approach similar to kind of what you and I did on Wednesday. I think we'll go position by position here, but also take a look at the Sims, take a look at the lineup generator, kind of lean into just the whole game theory of all of this. And one of the things that you and I talked about a lot over the last like week and a half has just been, is it viable to go no QB lineups? Is it viable to do 5-1s? And I'll set it up with this. Let me just set the table for you before we dive into these positions. So when Greg and I did the Sims strategy show, where we look at the Sims, what are the highest Sims lineups, looking at everything, how many dupes are we getting? What's our exposure look like? Everything, every position, you name it. The one thing that jumped off the page to me was that there was actually a decent amount of 5-1s that were showing up, which makes sense. But also it wasn't just like the way to get away from chalk wasn't just going 5-1s. There were plenty of 3-3s in there, 4-2s on either side. And then to take it a step further, one of the things that really jumped off the page to me was when you looked over all of these lineups, we were actually a little underweight on Christian McCaffrey at the captain spot. But the biggest thing to me was how many times that we've done showdowns this year, and you look at these slates, are the Sims and just, really good lineups going to give you some really cheap guys at captain because it opens things up. Now, sure, to be different elsewhere, you might want to leave some money on the table, whatever. We had, I think, one lineup out of 150 that had one of the true like 3K or less guys at captain, whereas Moody was the only other one getting captain ownership, some defense, but none of these legitimate punts. Mind you, almost all of them are coming from Kansas City. We're making their way into the captain spot in our Sims runs.
And I think that makes sense because, these tools are extremely powerful, and part of it is leverage and being different. And when you put one of the true cheapies at captain, your pool of what realistically you're going to do is pretty small because it opens up money for the same guys for everybody. And that makes it really, really different. Whereas if you go, it's almost like the counterbalance of if you take McCaffrey at captain, like your options are also somewhat limited because you don't have unlimited money. Really, to me, where you have the most flexibility is, and it was, we just got a question about this from Beezy saying favorite single entry captain. I think it's that mid-range guy, someone that can really contribute, but the Ayuk, the Debo, the Pacheco range.
Kittle too, I think.
Kittle
can explode.
Those guys, to me, are the types of captain. Again, I'm going to have all sorts of teams, but I find it most interesting to build with them at captain. I think that's where you can get some really different types of lineups.
Well, and you already make some points because Jordan pulled our exposures up. He ran the Sims on his side. Jordan Klein producing the show, everybody. And while we do have 21% McCaffrey at captain here, okay, so he's still our highest owned captain, but slightly below the field here. At captain, you're talking 14% Debo, 12, and Jordan, scroll down a little bit for me. 14% Debo, 12% Ayuk, 11% Rice, 11% Kelce, 9% George Kittle. And then, like I'm saying though, let's see where we get to where we actually get our first legitimate cheap guy, right? So, and Moody you can throw in there, but I'm talking the cheap skill players.
Like MVS.
People are going to throw an MVS in, exactly. And then what are they going to do? Jam the rest of their lineups with studs. You can do that. But in these runs that we're getting currently, simulating these tens of thousands of times and seeing in a like we're replicating these contests, doing our best to replicate these contests and see each one where they finish. Then we're just, giving those points to the highest lineups and running them over and over again. We're not like, you don't see it. So in our Sims runs currently, they're not showing that punting captain, even on a slate with a lot of high priced players, is actually the move.
And again, I think that makes sense because there's an element of like logically following through on it. And I know I kind of alluded to this before, but it's like, oh my God, we talked about it, 9 legitimate top end guys in some regard. I want as many of them as possible in my lineup. Well, what's the easiest way to do that? Save all the money at captain where you're paying that tax and then jam 4 or 5 of them into the lineup. The problem with that is everybody who chooses the same captain as you is basically choosing the same flex players as you, because why wouldn't you? Unless you're saying, I want to leave 7,000 on the table and I want a 1v1 McCaffrey versus Moody, it's very difficult to see that working in some regards. I don't like that build personally with the really cheap captain.
Yeah, for sure. We also had a couple of questions. One from, where was it? From Chris. So wait, what does 5-1s mean in this context? So it's basically five Niners, one Chief, 5 Chiefs, 1 Niner. That's all. So if you're
An
talking
onslaught.
4-2, what's that?
Yeah, like an onslaught of one
It's an
team.
onslaught. Yeah. 4-2, 3-3, same concept with just more balanced builds. And Jordan can pull it up there. Like you can see, yeah, we have a lot of you because you can see the stacks there. If you look at the stacks, we have a decent amount of 5-1s in here, but it's not all crazy. Look, there's a lot of 4-2s, 3-3s on both sides. That's the way it is. So let's get into quarterbacks. Before we do, a couple questions, more so remarks in chat about Jerick McKinnon. How do you approach something like this? Because generally for the Super Bowl, we don't have this type of pending news going into the Super. He also hasn't played in a long time.
Yeah, a real long time. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. Now, the thing that's very interesting, we were talking about this on some of our first look shows, like Eli Mitchell, guys like that, where like we don't really know if they're going to have a role. I'm not sure I'm there. I don't know if McKinnon is going to have a role either, but he is $200. That is a big difference from most of when we went through the reasonable punt plays, almost every one of them, in my opinion, was from about 3K of MVS to about, $1,000, give or take, maybe $800. I didn't see a $200 play. McKinnon could serve as that type of build, but I still think he's, of course, very live to actually get 0.
Yeah, it's tough. And you know what? While he was activated off the IR, he might not even be active. He might not.
That would make it easier.
But here's the other thing. If he's active, he might not see the field.
So yeah, I mean, that's where I don't know. Part of me says like, why would you make him active to have him do nothing? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
I get it. Last time he played was December 17th. So essentially 2 months.
2 months. Knows the team though, like been around, been in big games, has a role, can catch the ball. Now, the other thing that's interesting, do you think if he's active, that makes Clyde Edwards-Helaire even more irrelevant? Will people say, I didn't want to go to him to begin with, and I'm not going to go? Because if that's the case, we may be looking at McCaffrey and Pacheco and that is it at running back, because I don't like any other Niners backs. And now I'm starting to wonder if I like any other Chiefs backs.
It's real tough, especially because you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire in and out of the lineup. You've had McKinnon in and out of the lineup. Like the last 2 games McKinnon played, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was active and Pacheco wasn't. And then you go back like a game before that, McKinnon missed 2 and then played one before that, played 30% of snaps. Pacheco played 61 and Clyde Edwards-Helaire played 5%. So like, there were games here where it was just Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, and then Edwards-Helaire's playing like 3 or 4 snaps.
Yeah. And that's, again, I think it's certainly, listen, can you play McKinnon if he's active? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it that he's in the pool as a dart throw. I still don't think with any degree of confidence that I have a role. And for me, if I don't get to him, I'm not that worried about it. It's just that he does fill a price point that you can't get to. You want to be very different. I'm already messing around as we speak, like Pacheco, McKinnon, both in the flex or something. Like, can we do that? Is that even more bizarre? Because he changes the dynamic of your lineup if you do it.
I'll put it to you this way. If McKinnon is active, I would rather play McKinnon over Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
So would I, just because he might get like 5 targets and just that's his role and that's easy. And he's $200.
He's cheaper. And also he has a different skill set than Isaiah Pacheco. Whereas like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just coming in for a couple opportunities, if that. Whereas with Jerick McKinnon, they do use him in the red zone in the passing game. Like we've seen it, he had a 2 touchdown game through the air this season. It's not like they're unwilling to do that. Last year he had 3 for 15 receiving in the Super Bowl. He had 4 for 34 on the ground. I'm not saying we anticipate something like that, but like, who would you rather have getting? What would you rather have? Like 1 or 2 rushing attempts from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe a target at 1,200, or hope that McKinnon gets 3 targets or something through the air. I'll take those McKinnon targets all day long.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's not ironic, but the thing that's this is not going to factor in is my guess. I have a feeling he's not going to be
I don't
active.
think so.
So it's going to be irrelevant, but it's good to plan for these things because we're going to need to try to figure out. There's going to be a guy. There's always a guy, a random person who's going to have those 1 or 2 opportunities. And if you get that right, that could be the difference today.
Absolutely. Let's talk quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy. I mentioned to you on Wednesday, the last game Patrick Mahomes had with more than 20 fantasy points was week 7, which is patently absurd, right? And we've seen so many games where 2 of these playmakers coexist and have great games, Pacheco and Kelsey, Pacheco and Rice, and both of them, particularly in these playoffs, like you've kind of needed them because been smaller slates. But now we're down to 1 game and it's still Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I have no problem having plenty of lineups without Patrick Mahomes for what it's worth. I have no interest in full fading Patrick Mahomes either, but there is something to be said about how this team is operated. You kind of broke it down when we talked on the First Look show, but there is something to be said about, hey, look, they want to run the football if they can. This is not the same. Does he have rushing upside? Sure. And he's presented some of that in the playoffs and pretty much every Super Bowl he's played in, no doubt about it. He's great at evading pressure and then taking off if he needs to. But there's also something to be said, like, hey, Isaiah Pacheco and Kelce in the same lineup, or Isaiah Pacheco and Rice in the same lineup without Patrick Mahomes has actually worked quite well.
And it's shocking. That's something that never used to factor in, but the reality of the situation is that Mahomes lately has been not making any mistakes and not doing as much. And it's working. Like he has he has 4 touchdowns and no interceptions in the playoffs. He had 30 completions against Baltimore for 241 yards. I know it seems like he's running all over the place and he can move. I was on OddsShopper this morning and we're going to talk about some of the betting sides. Don't worry. But, his prop is at 25.5. It's not going to be crazy. He may give you a couple points on the ground and that's a nice bonus. But all in all, if Mahomes and the Chiefs do what they've been doing, which is don't turn the ball over, let your opponent make mistakes, lean on your defense, lean on your running game, and methodically move the ball down the field, the PPR points for your receivers is huge. And Mahomes really has honestly, not that much upside in that type of offense.
Yeah, 27 passing touchdowns in the regular season. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think listen, we all know I'm not saying I didn't know how good he was, but to me, this is almost more impressive that he's willing to chameleon himself into almost like a Brock Purdy and be like, okay, I'm not going to screw the game up.
Yeah, and the advantage Brock Purdy has is he has more weapons in the pass.
Way more.
For sure. Like guys that can rip off big yards after the catch. If you're playing Patrick Mahomes, are you looking to okay, obviously Rice, Kelsey, whatever, but would you be more inclined to get some of these cheaper options at Kansas City with Mahomes quarterback lineups or Mahomes captain lineups? Like, how are you playing that? Because just think about some of the guys that we have to dig into here, and we'll get, who's active and who's inactive soon enough, but MVS, Watson, Richie James, Mecole Hardman, who played 1 snap last time out. Like, who are going to be these guys? Kadarius Toney's not expected to play, but what are we expecting here? Sky Moore is another one, full practice participant throughout the week. He was activated off the IR earlier, and what happens here? That's another guy. Not to mention Noah Gray.
I mean, that's always incredibly difficult. I do think those are the type of players that are more inclined to be in a Mahomes lineup just because for them to tap into their ceiling or be useful, it's not going to be on volume most likely. Like, I don't think many people are thinking, I'm going to play MVS and he's going to get 9 targets. He's going to rack up some receptions and I'll be good. They're saying, I'm going to play MVS because he might turn one of those 2 targets into an 80-yard reception.
Same thing with Watson getting 2 receptions and one of them's a 23-yard touchdown.
So not all of them, but if you take a play like that and you break it down in terms of how many points does my receiver get and how many points does my quarterback get, the ratio is so much different than a guy like Kelsey or Rice, where they might get, 14 or 15 points, and Mahomes has 2, 3, maybe, if that. Whereas Watson or MVS catch a long touchdown, they may have 10 or 12, and Mahomes has 7 or 8. Like, it's a different ratio.
Kelsey could have 9 for 90 and not score. Finish with, let's say 9 for 100 and not score.
That's right? 22.
Exactly, including the bonus.
Yep.
Whereas
that's 4 for
4
Mahomes.
points for Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
But that's exactly what we taught. That's what we've seen. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that is what we've seen from these guys, where Kelsey and Rice can combine for 15 receptions on 20 targets and combine for 180 yards. And you're like, all right, man, on a short slate, that'll get me there. That's fine. But it does absolutely nothing for Patrick. Seriously, 25 points between Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. Let's even throw a touchdown in there. Could still amount to like 9 for Mahomes.
Yep. And again, throw in a little rushing, but 25.5 is where that line is. So even if you say he eclipses it, you're talking about maybe like an extra touchdown's worth, which is valuable, but it's not going to change the scales that much. He's going to have to change the offense a little bit for him to tap into the ceiling. And I'm not saying that can happen. Like, I think one of the advantages potentially, if you want to do that, is to look and say, well, the Chiefs have been in control of these games, all of them. Miami, Buffalo, and Baltimore, they were close or leading. What happens if it's 17-0? San Francisco. Like, will Mahomes have to say, okay, it's time for me to single-handedly take them back? That could easily happen.
Right. And Kenny would need that.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. But again, just to point it out, yes, 150-yard touchdown from MVS is 12. But that's still 6 from Mahomes. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, 2-to-1 ratio versus like over 5-to-1.
Yep.
In the other example.
Yeah. So the point here is that you can clearly play Mahomes with anybody. Because hey, Kelsey could have a 8 for 102 touchdown game. But the likelihood that Kelsey or Rice get there without Mahomes is something that we've seen quite often lately. And it's a lot more likely than if MVS gets there and then you're like, oh, okay, well, you want to have that tied to Patrick Mahomes. But you can do either. It's not an either or. They're not mutually exclusive. It is, I think you bring up a good point, a really strong way to look at that though. All right. A lot of thoughts here in chat, Ben, as well. Just the Niners fans, Chiefs fans. You like the Niners?
I do. I know it's a tough game. Like, it's always a tough game. I do lean San Francisco. I'm very impressed with our chat. I really was expecting more rigged comments already, and we haven't got that. That's because we have very sharp people in there. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a competitive game, and I do lean San Francisco. Particularly, there's a -120 money line out there. And that's a good number to win the game at -120. I'm very comfortable with that.
The Chiefs are an enigma, though.
Yeah, they're a legendary team. They're incredible.
But they keep winning games where you watch the games and go, huh? And then they make it. You know what I mean? Like, and then they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking a shot at Kansas City. I didn't come away from the Baltimore game thinking, man, the Chiefs are just so much better than Baltimore. Like, they're just the best team. I came away saying they played good enough to win, and Baltimore really screwed the game up. Like, if they do that again, and the difference is, and we don't need to dive deep into this, the turnover margin for San Francisco is pretty strong. They do not lose the game on their own pretty often. So I think if the Chiefs win, they're going to have to go take the game. It's not going to be given to them with personal fouls from the clouds and just fumbles and things of that nature.
For sure. Michael H said, I'm done betting against Mahomes. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way.
Yes, that's a very, very, very reasonable take.
Like week 15, they looked left for dead.
Yeah, I mean, I was very certain that they were going to beat Miami, and I was pretty damn certain that Buffalo and or Baltimore would knock them out.
I really thought Baltimore would win. I thought they could beat Buffalo just because Buffalo finds ways to lose. You know what I mean? Like they find ways to lose games.
They do.
And in my opinion, they did. I'm not saying Kansas City played a bad game, but Buffalo completely abandoned the run. They put themselves in a really bad situation. But yeah, no, they're a tough team to figure out. They're a really tough team to figure out. They'll show up though.
Yeah,
they will, as
but
they
so will
always
San
do.
Francisco. I think, I don't know. I'm a little surprised that, and I get that the Packers and the Lions both really tested them. I am a little surprised at how many people are not, for a long time, San Francisco was like unbeatable. I remember doing first look shows with you when people were talking about them just never losing.
Well, that's when you said that you were betting the Browns and then didn't because Watson was out, and then the Browns still beat them without Watson.
Very typical.
Yeah, no, look, hey, these two teams faced each other in the Super Bowl, what, 4 years ago? 5 years ago? 5 years ago?
Was it that long?
I think so, right? That was the one where you could have made a really good argument that Damian Williams was the MVP. Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the game. I can't believe there's been, yeah, I mean, I guess Brady. I forget the Tampa one. Like I forget Mahomes got walloped in a Super Bowl.
Correct. That's when Tampa.
I never remember that one.
That's when Tampa smoked them.
Smoked them. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a wild game for sure. I felt like it was never even competitive. I don't know. And who was it? Who was the line? Devin White.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Had just a game-wrecking performance. But as we've talked about, if you're betting the MVP and Tom Brady has even a distinctly faint pulse.
Yeah, if he shows up.
Right. Unless it's like the game where Edelman won it and it was 13-3. That's different. Because like Edelman had that crazy grab against the Rams. But if Mahomes is even decent today, he's getting the MVP. That's why I'm going McCaffrey or Debo. And that Debo MVP odds, that was, yeah, I know you talked about it. That was plus 3,300. That's down to 2,000 plus 20. That's down to plus 2,000 in a lot of spots. So, yeah, Debo, man, we'll get into it. But Brock Purdy, another guy. I like him today. No issues. But at the same time, I don't want to ignore the fact that I'm perfectly fine having like Debo, McCaffrey, no Brock Purdy lineups, especially given Debo's rushing ability. The fact that, he has 10 red zone carries this year may not sound like a lot, but in a single game slate, and a guy that can break off anything after the tackle, super elusive in space, like no problems doing that. It's just a weird game where it's the Super Bowl, but neither of these quarterbacks, in my opinion, are just straight lock and load.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think everything that we talked about with Mahomes is Purdy to a T. And so like, he's been like that for quite a while. His goal is to not screw it up, to get the ball out of his hands and let the skill position players take over the game. I guarantee, San Francisco would sign for just a clean game from him. That's all they really want. And if they get beat there, so be it. It doesn't mean that he can't make plays. It doesn't mean that you can't use him. I actually think he's a really against the grain captain. Because I don't really think, normally quarterbacks, but I don't think a lot of people want to do that with Purdy. And I kind of find myself interested in maybe there is a way where he can disperse, some targets and rack up some points. He's got a little mobility, not much, but yeah, I'm not writing Purdy off, but it's very, very clear that San Francisco can move the ball, score points, and Purdy isn't really a part of it.
Steve O'Shea asked, did you watch the Bills game? They did not abandon the run. Sure felt like late in that game where all they needed to do was run because Kansas City couldn't stop a thing. Sure felt like there was some abandonment there. I mean, Ty Johnson was gashing them at one point.
Yeah, they should have just let Josh Allen run it every play, honestly, but
maybe they didn't abandon it entirely, but it sure felt like the run-pass ratio wasn't where it should have been. Am I misremembering this from a few weeks ago?
It's all a blur, but no, I mean, I thought the Bills, that was another weird game. And again, some of this is not just like San Francisco. Kansas City puts you in positions to screw up, just like Baltimore. And both teams happen to do it, and the Chiefs seized the opportunity.
The Chiefs also have a fantastic pass defense. They're fourth in DVOA against the deep ball too. So what does that do for you when it comes to guys like Debo and Ayuk, who they typically look to get downfield to? Look, Ayuk could have had a much less impressive game had it not been that weird catch that he had. What was that, like off a helmet or off of, yeah. Other, aside from that, they were struggling to get it deep. And it's not like Purdy hasn't been efficient on deep balls. He actually has. He's also been good under pressure. This is a tough spot for Purdy because their offensive line, look, it's not as bad as people want to pretend it is, but it's also not their biggest strength. And you've got a Kansas City Chiefs team that finished the season #1 in sack rate, 11th in pressure rate. They can get to the quarterback, which is why I have distinct interest in guys like Debo and even Kittle, because if you're talking about yak guys, Debo Samuel, yards after the catch per reception, minimum 25 targets. Because if you don't, then you're just going to get this random nonsense where it's like guys that have 5 targets had 50 yards after, how it goes.
Yeah.
#1 in the league, yards after the catch per reception. And Kittle can do that too. Like both of those guys are really good. And I think you get it to them if you have to get the ball out early, unless there's just excellent protection that we didn't account for. I think that could be a spot that makes this a really interesting game.
Yeah, and again, that's where Purdy's going to be at somewhat of a disadvantage. Like if the Niners, it's funny with both teams, the way I look at the quarterbacks, if it goes according to plan, I don't know if either quarterback has a big game in their team's philosophy. Like to me, if the Niners everything goes right, Purdy will be dumping the ball off quickly, leaning on the run game, not turning it over. Maybe he takes a shot here or there, but they don't want him slinging the ball 40 yards down the field if they can just throw bubble screens, throw screens to McCaffrey, get Kittle involved, timely slant to Ayuk, stuff like that, and call it a day. And it's the same with Kansas City, as we talked about.
Corey Ballmer, and he could see even more targets as Ayuk will be shadowed by Snead. He's been the best quarterback in the NFL in guarding #1s. Yeah, look, they're really good.
Yeah, they're good.
Second, and they're really good on deep attempts too. Really, really good. And I know, like against man coverage, Brandon Ayuk has kind of been the guy, but I think I think you'd agree it's a little bit more difficult when you're going up against this personnel, and it's a tough spot.
Very tough. And again, I don't think, unless it's absolutely necessary, the Niners are thinking we need to win that matchup. If I was San Francisco, I would say, okay, you can have that. We will cancel that out, and we've got 3 or 4 other weapons that I want to see you defend now.
Absolutely. Talk running backs here, by the way. This is really, for me, we already talked about McKinnon. This is as simple as it gets for me. And Jordan, pull up exposures to our running backs if you don't matter. It's less important because there's no positional requirements, but I want to see if the Sims are providing us with something similar to what I'm getting. If you guys are using the Sims, many of you are, the lineup generator, you're probably getting similar results. And obviously, if you guys, NBA is in full swing. We got MLB coming up. The Sims crushed because we introduced it last year for MLB season. That was the first time we had it. Or lineup generator for NBA, MLB, PGA, all of these sports. We got UFC Sims. We have, what else? PGA Sims.
NASCAR.
Coming up. Yeah, like all of that. So if you ever wanted to try it for a week, try it for a month, links in the description or in chat for all of this stuff. And you can get all access to the Sims, which gives you all access to the entirety of the site, to all of the data, ownership, player projections, the boom bust tools, top stacks tools, but also the contest generator, the Sims, the late swap tool, which is massive, particularly for NBA, the post contest simulator that Ben and I used every Tuesday on the podcast exclusive, just super valuable stuff. If you ever wanted to check it out and you wanted to go all access, keep this in mind. Massive discount in perpetuity, meaning every single month if you're rocking the stochastic avatar. So, yeah, all of that down there in the description and chat. NFL might be going away, but you don't have to wait 8 months to play DFS and love DFS again. Like the best part about these tools is even if you don't know the sports, you can create better lineups than the competition, like what I've been doing for PGA, because I don't know shit about PGA too.
Sometimes I question if I do. Yeah, no, the tools are fantastic. Again, just find what works for you. That's what we tried to make it. Whether you play all the sports, you might want to look at an all access. If you say, I know I'm only going to be playing baseball, well, then I would just suggest going to baseball. But there's something there for everyone. I really believe that.
Yeah, man. Anyway, link down there, like I said in the description or in chat. So running back, it's not do you play Christian McCaffrey, it's how much McCaffrey do you play. And one of the things that jumped off the page to me again was we have what, 41% McCaffrey at flex. I looked earlier, we had 21% at captain. The 20 we have projected or 22% pool exposure here. So pretty close estimate of what ownership would look like on these. We're basically saying Christian McCaffrey is not going to be the reason we lose because these sims are giving us essentially with the field on Christian McCaffrey.
And I like that. I don't want to, normally I think it's probably a macro take, but I think it's easier to make a stand on a middling player, a low tier player than the guy. Like figuring out with McCaffrey, you know, if you want to lock him, lock him. I don't know how in the world you say like I'm not playing him in a sense of if you have a lot of lineups. For me, I'm going to have a lot of McCaffrey. So is the field. I hope if he goes crazy, he's on the right lineups. I hope if he has a terrible game, I'm willing to sacrifice a ton of my pool, and the lineups that don't have him are going to be the ones that I really focus on.
Do you think there's any necessity to try and get different with this, or is more so just, you know, par for the course? It's really tough because with McCaffrey, you can play him with Purdy, you can play him without Purdy, no problem. That's not an issue, right? You get it done on the ground, get it done through the air. He's going to play, barring any type of injury, he's going to play 100% of snaps. Maybe 99%, like maybe a Mitchell gets one as he gets a breather, or McCaffrey gets dumped on his head, or they're icing the game and Mitchell gets the carries. No, actually, why would you even do that? Because this is the last game of the season. So McCaffrey's going to get those carries, right? Like he's going to be on the field for essentially every single snap of the game.
Yeah, I mean, McCaffrey fits every single type of lineup. There's really no scenario where, I mean, you don't really factor in like, yeah, something fluky could happen, like he could get hurt, but it's not like even if the Chiefs blew out the Niners, I don't think it's a guarantee that you wouldn't want McCaffrey.
No, you probably still want him. From a PPR standpoint, he'd probably give you 10 points in receptions alone.
That's where it's, yeah.
But I think Elijah Mitchell is essentially unplayable. Unless you're going with the, what do you call it? The mega mind genius play.
Yeah, correct.
Like McCaffrey gets hurt in the first quarter, can't return. And now it's Elijah Mitchell's backfield. Because aside from that, there is not a path. Like, unless this is a Nick, remember that showdown game? Nick Chubb got hurt in the first quarter.
Jerome
and then
Ford.
Jerome Ford came in and some people played Jerome Ford. But even in this instance, it's different because Jerome Ford was going to get some work there, just spelling him. They didn't have Kareem Hunt at the time. And we knew that they weren't going to give Nick Chubb all the work. In this instance, McCaffrey's going to get all of the work. So he'd have to get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, again, it gets very complex in the sense that McCaffrey's raw points probably get you there, but then there can be a combination that sucks up so much salary that you couldn't get McCaffrey. And if all those players play good, they can box out a guy that has, if all the cheap guys completely crater, even if McCaffrey has a really big game, not a really big game, but a solid game, he might not be the right permutation just because you needed to attack the mid-range so heavily. And when you do that, you can't pay for McCaffrey.
Without question. And if those mid-range guys all have really great games or even just all good games, then you don't need McCaffrey. Yeah, there's two ways it can go wrong, not talking about injuries. One, as you pointed out, none of the cheap plays do anything. But then, well, I guess it would be the same. None of the cheap plays do anything, but those mid-range kind of more balanced builds end up doing really well.
That's what you would need. And so again, when you talk about it like that, it's pretty easy to justify why it's McCaffrey. Like I don't see the need to do much with it. I'm definitely building lineups where I just don't have them because I went to the mid-range very heavily, and then I have plenty of lineups where I'm going to have them.
But what I'm more so referring to is I don't see how you can play Elijah Mitchell.
No, I'm not playing him.
I know you've been big on Pacheco for a while now. I know one of the props you really like today is over 15.5 rushing attempts. I love betting rushing attempt props because I think, you have to find some inefficiencies, and in the Super Bowl, that often won't be the case. But your thought process here is, hey, close game, competitive spread, 2-point spread. Why would you not continue to feed Isaiah Pacheco the ball as they've done all postseason?
Yeah, the 24 carries in 2 of the 3 games. He had 15 in the other. The Chiefs have a formula and it's working, and it's lean on that ground game, burn up clock, win possession. If you can do it against Baltimore, you can do it against anybody. And I think that Pacheco is he's just a good player. He can catch the ball too. Obviously, for the prop, you're not concerned about that, but for DFS, you are. And when I look at him, he obviously isn't McCaffrey. Nobody is, but he's going to be busy no matter what happens to the Chiefs. They don't have the luxury of not leaning on him, I think, this year.
If you were creating a same game parlay,
Mhm.
3 legs, I assume this is going in there, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good piece. If they let you, I don't know the parameters, if you can include rushing attempts, but if you could, yes, that's a good piece.
If you can, are you still fine throwing in San Francisco money line into that?
Yeah, because I think that there's very few scenarios where the Chiefs are like, we have to abandon the run.
The only way that doesn't work is in the event that San Francisco just torches them.
Yeah.
And then all bets are off.
And even if that happened, like, I don't think it's a guarantee that means that no running attempts late in the game. Like the Chiefs will still run the ball. I think they'll have success running the ball. They could have drives where Pacheco could have 6 or 7 carries.
Hey, in chat, fire away. MVP bets, first touchdown scores, favorite bet of the day. I want to see some of these. I already told you, you and I are both on the same page. You're on the same page as me with McCaffrey too, in the way that he can get there. I think it was crazy that you were getting McCaffrey at plus 475 and Brock Purdy at plus 200. I think
for MVP.
Yeah, for MVP, I think there was actually value there, just because McCaffrey's going to be on the field literally as much as Brock Purdy, and there's ways that you can box Purdy out of the conversation. That is with McCaffrey, and assuming they win, obviously, and that is with Debo Samuel, right? Those are the 2 guys, in my opinion, that can truly box Purdy out of the MVP conversation if they win that game.
Yeah, because they can do things that aren't tied to Purdy. Like George Kittle would need to catch like 4 touchdowns, and obviously they're all going to be from Purdy. And yeah, it would probably go to Kittle, but Debo can catch a 1-yard pass and go 80 yards. Debo can run the ball. He's supposed to get a couple of attempts as he normally does on the ground. And then there's McCaffrey. So I get it. I think that, targeting those guys for, if you're betting MVP, first touchdown score, anything like that is where I'm looking.
Steven Leibowitz. I kind of love this, man. My favorite bet today is longest field goal is more than total points scored at plus money.
That's a great bet.
It kind of is. Well, look, you're not talking about bad weather conditions.
And Butker's amazing.
A monster. And he's used a lot. They use Butker a lot. I saw a defensive touchdown in here. Man, Rough Buff said 49ers kickoff return touchdown.
If that happens, that person needs to come back and chat. We need to inquire. That's time machine situation.
That'd be insane. Mitchell said Pacheco MVP. See, it's tough. MVP running back hasn't won MVP since Terrell Davis in 1998. And Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback. You go back to the last time these teams faced each other in the Super Bowl. Damian Williams had a phenomenal game. Many people said he should have won it, but he didn't. It's tough. It's tough. And Rashee Rice, I could see that. Sure. I mean, Rice could have a huge game, but again, if he has a huge game, does it go to him or does it go to Patrick Mahomes? If Debo has a big game and he runs one in and he scores one, as you pointed out, through the air, but it's like 5 yards in a cloud of dust on an 80-yard touchdown, then Debo starts to look really good,
What's always weird with Super Bowl props? I can't tell if the line is wrong. It's so hard to grasp. Like Phil in chat just said, Pacheco to have over 10 yards rushing in every quarter. 16-1. That seems just like a great bet. But then I'm like, is it?
Well, hold on a second. At 16-1, that would for sure be good.
That feels like wrong.
But I'm pretty sure that bet is Pacheco, and correct me if I'm wrong. Find it and let me know. I saw that earlier. I thought it was Pacheco to have a 10+ yard run in every quarter. That would make more sense at 16-1.
That would make more sense. Okay.
Right?
I was going to say, like, even me just like eyeballing it, that
dude,
seems
16-1 would be a smash. I know, like, you're just trying to go through it in your head.
Yeah, I'm like,
I'm pretty sure his rushing props around 70. Like, no matter how you cut that, you have to bet that at 16-1.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. I was
Phil
like,
says,
wait,
Phil, maybe I have to be right about this. It has to be 10+ yard run in each of the 4 quarters.
Yeah. At first I was like, oh, maybe it's plus 160. You know, there was an extra 0 applied. Right.
No, I'm almost positive it's 10+. By the way, guys, this is probably the last time to take advantage of it. BetMGM is doing bet 5, get $158 in bonus bets, 58 for Super Bowl. But instead of doing $58, they did 100. Phil said, yeah, you're right. I just double checked. Yeah. Hey, it's possible.
That would have been nice.
Instead of 58, they're doing 158. This is what you do. Links in the description and in chat. You click the link. Okay. I don't know if the ad blocker thing works, but if you have an ad blocker, turn it off real quick, because sometimes some of these links are weird with ad blocks just in your YouTube. You deposit $5 when you sign up. You still have how many hours to do this? Deposit $5, bet $5 on what? Bet $5 on Isaiah Pacheco, 10+ rushing yard, 10+ yard rushing attempt in each of the 4 quarters. $5. Whether you win or lose doesn't matter. You instantly get $158 in bonus bets. Instantly. You don't have to win the bet. 158 in bonus bets. Boom. That's it. You got to be 21 years or older to gamble. And if you have a gambling problem, you should call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But it's bet 5 into 158. And also, if you're looking to say, you know what, screw it. I'd rather, instead of 158, get $308 in bonus bets on 10 total bucks. Bet 365. It's only in these 9 states: Colorado, Indiana, Ohio, Arizona, New Jersey, Virginia, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Iowa. If you're in one of those 9 and you also have BetMGM, bet 5, get 150, BetMGM, bet 5, get 158. Beautiful stuff happen around Super Bowl. And Ben, as I always say it, the best time to take advantage and take the stuff from the books is right now for the biggest game of the year.
All of that is very, very true. You got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But I got to ask. I said it. Oh, I didn't hear you say it. I was so confused.
I just did it so smoothly that you didn't even notice.
What order did you put those states in? My brain hurts. That was crazy.
Pretty good at that, dude. That was all off the top.
Oh my God.
And I never do them in the same order either.
That gives me anxiety. Like I do them in the same order every day. And you're just like, you inserted Arizona in the middle. I don't like that. That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
At the very least, you should be impressed by it.
I am impressed. It's awesome. It is true. Everything you said. Listen, this is like Christmas for promos and bonuses, not just for the sites. We're going to talk about Odd Chopper in a bit as well. There's just so much going on around the Super Bowl, but you freaked me out there. I don't know about that.
How much Pacheco do you want at captain right now?
So the thing that I like about Pacheco at captain is that he has a clear path. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if Pacheco destroys the game, all the points are his. All of them. You know, he could have 3 rushing touchdowns and the Chiefs dominate on defense. Pacheco's the MVP. Pacheco dominates 20+ carry style. I like that build. But still, I'm not really building with that in mind. I think he has a clear path to success. Just it's not really the path I'm choosing. So I'll have a little, but nothing crazy, maybe 10%.
Are you getting to Edwards-Helaire if McKinnon is out? Because I'm still not really excited about that play.
Definitely not excited. Am I getting there? I don't want to say definitely not. But not in a big way. No, he's certainly not going anywhere near a captain situation. And I'd be more prone to take a shot on like Watson or Gray before I went to Edwards-Helaire, I think.
All right. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I was going to say as well. If I'm doing this, I think I would, like, if I'm going cheap, right? If I'm going real cheap, I think I would rather just put myself in a position where like one of these guys could have a long touchdown or something like that. Is it impossible for Clyde Edwards-Helaire? No, I suppose it isn't. But at the same time, it's less likely for him. And he's also going to be on the field a lot less. So if you've got MVS at least on the field a good amount, and you've got a bunch of these guys, we'll see what's going on. We don't really know Sky Moore and some of these other guys. Kadarius Toney's not expected to play, but just from a salary and ownership standpoint, looking at it now, Edwards-Helaire 1,200 in our top single game and showdown plays tool, where you have the leverage scores and ownership and optimal probabilities. We have him. So 1.9% optimal captain. I suppose that's not awful because he's getting 1% ownership at captain, but 7% optimal at the utility, Ben. No real leverage here. I don't know, man. I think I'd probably just go and basically pay the same price on Noah Gray, who they've actually been using. We have him 1.9% captain ownership, 3.2% optimal captain, but also 12.8% optimal in the utility spot, 2% leverage. That's probably where I end up looking. And MVS is a little bit more expensive, but it's not impossible to make that work. So I think I'm with you there.
Yeah, I think there's all increments of, MVS is going to be more popular. A lot. He's on the field all the time. He plays 90% of snaps. He is the lasting image of the end of the Ravens game. He's a little more expensive, but I think he's almost in his own category there. And then you've got the guys that you're like, okay, couple of targets, maybe, not a ton of snaps, but if they catch a touchdown, how big of an advantage am I at? And I think that's where Watson, Gray, Edwards-Helaire, Richie James to a lesser extent all factor in.
I'm a loser till I win the Milli, said Loughy. Who was the president in the first Super Bowl? All right, so I know the year of the first Super Bowl, so I know the answer to this. Let's see if you do. Because by the way, guys, Ben named the presidents in order the other day as well. I knew he'd have.
And the presidents named a flag off the top of my head. I don't know when the first Super Bowl was, and I'm not going to know.
Okay, if I give you the year of the first Super Bowl, I think you can get it.
Oh, what is
1967? This? I think.
Kennedy?
I think it would have been Lyndon B. Johnson.
Kennedy got
because
November
Nixon came in 1969 because he was there for the moon landing. You guys can tell us. Was it?
I'm trying to look this up right now.
I'm gonna go LBJ. I think LBJ would make the most sense. Yeah. I-40 Film said, what's the capital of South Dakota? Ben can name the capital of every country in the world. So I would assume states aren't a big issue.
Yes. Yeah, I do know that. Our friend Eric Lindquist has been to Pierre many a times, I'm sure. It's his homeland.
Capital of Macedonia.
Macedonia, Skopje.
See, I told you guys.
No, what the hell is that? It looks like Lebanon's with different colors. That's no country, I hate to tell you. Yeah, what the hell is that?
Give him another one. We'll keep
That's not a country.
We'll keep talking football here. Give him an obscure flag. See if he can pull it off, Jordan. We'll see. But yeah.
What the hell's the Norfolk Islands?
Appreciate you, Brandon. Thanks for hanging out with us all season. We appreciate all you guys for hanging with us all season. But without you guys, we can't do this, so it means a lot. Also, I suppose I should ask one more time, Ben, before we get to the rest. I think we've touched on it a lot here, even though we've gone out of order with the positions. 255 thumbs up. We got 1,350 people watching with us. Some people may have just forgot. Long weekend, long day. I get it. Subtle reminder. Tap that thumbs up. What do you think's feasible here? 400 before we wrap this?
Yeah. Listen, it's been an amazing year. And I know a lot of people we still got plenty of time. They're gonna tune into this later. So if you're not watching live, again, just appreciate you guys. Yeah, we've talked about most players. I mean, kickers and defense, we haven't mentioned a ton. And I don't have a lot of hot takes for them, Loughy, to be honest. Just kind of using them where they fit.
Yes, and I would say this much. The Sims do like Moody quite a bit. The Sims are getting to a decent amount of Butker. I think it makes plenty of sense, really. And I have no issues doing that whatsoever. I think also you're probably going to see a lot of people inclined to go down to some of these cheaper options at skill players before they get to, like, we only have, so this, I'll provide some context for you guys, allow you to make your own decisions here, right? But we have Butker 1% at captain, but only 16% at the flex. That's not a lot. We have Jake Moody 3% at captain, 22% at flex. We do have him positively leveraged though. So this is not one of those games at all, Ben, given all of the skill options where you're seeing an insane amount of kicker ownership. They're not, don't get me wrong, they're relatively popular, but they're not crazy popular. And it's probably also because they're, $5,000 and $5,200 respectively.
Exactly. They're not cheap. People respect these offenses. It's always this delicate balance because we saw not that long ago, the Chiefs time and time again drive into the red zone over and over and stall. Like these good offenses, it only takes stalling in the red zone to give your kicker 4 or 5 opportunities in a game. Now, if you finish all your drives, probably going to be a pretty quiet day, and there's so many points that are accumulated, the kickers are boxed out. So I think it's just that risk reward, and they do fit. And we've seen even kicker at captain can work in a lot of different scenarios.
Kobe, thanks for the super chat, man. Said good season. Thanks, fellas. Atone. Yes, atone for your sins. Appreciate all you guys. Final thoughts on this one. Favorite type of builds. Like I've mentioned, I have no problem with the 5-1 onslaughts. I have no problem getting away from lineups with quarterbacks. I think it's still viable on both sides, just given the personnel that these teams have. And as you've mentioned a lot, the way that Kansas City has kind of run this offense a little bit more conservatively. And also the third point, if I were to make like 3 major takeaways that I have using our Sims tool, using the lineup generator, and you and I just working through this over the last week or two, is that maybe this is one of those slates where paying all the way down at captain doesn't make as much sense because you can still make some really great balanced builds. And I have one more point to make there that I think we forgot to mention. And if you did, forgive me. If chat mentioned it, forgive me. This is the Super Bowl. DraftKings specifically, we see in a lot of these big games where they try and kind of soften the pricing a little bit to make it a little bit more attractive for the casual players. And I think you're seeing that. If this was week 11, Thursday night football, I don't think it would be nearly as easy to build some of the lineups that we're able to get to for the Super Bowl.
No doubt about it. And I think that lends itself to that mid-range that we've talked about, where you can really get, and that's kind of some of my favorite builds are just peppering 3 or 4 of those guys that I think can get there in PPR, hope the touchdowns kind of consolidate, and then you hit the right leverage, whether that's a direct punt, maybe it's just a kicker and a defense, something like that. Going to be a hell of a, it's someone's going to win. There's going to be an optimal lineup out there, and hopefully we grab a big piece of it here at Stochastic.
And if you are one of those people, by the way, follow Ben at JazzRaz DFS. I'm at Loughy_D. If you are one of those people, wins tonight, maybe you don't even chop. Maybe it's an insane solo or like only single, 2-person chop. Make sure you're rocking the Stochastic Hall of Fame avatar. You know what I mean? Stochastic.com/avatar. Not only you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, do you get inducted into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Jordan and I do the segment every single week. We've had some monster wins, some millies lately, and a whole lot more. But also, you get a free month of any package of your choosing. You're talking $200 value, any Sims package. Maybe you're like, all right, football's over. Get me into NBA. Get me into NBA. Get me into MLB. Free month, whatever you want, $200 value. Just tweet your wins to us at Stochastic HOF. If you're rocking that avatar, finish top 3 in a field of 5,000. Doesn't matter if it's a 5-cent entry. Doesn't make a difference. Make sure to be doing that. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us all season long. It's not quite over yet because we got Eric Lindquist. Nice jersey, brother. And Matt Gajewski.
Thank you, my guy.
Taking us home for Super Bowl 58. Good luck tonight, guys. Peace.
All righty, y'all. For anybody who wants to know, Loughy, smash the like button for him. He sent me an authentic Adrian Peterson jersey that he had sitting in stowaway. It needed to get busted out for today, that's for sure, because It's the final NFL Live Before Lock of the 23-24 NFL season. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me over on X at Eric Lindquist. I am, of course, alongside the Big Tuna, Matt Gajewski. My dude, it is Super Bowl Sunday. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. This is the moment we all wait for every single year. Biggest football game of the year. And I couldn't be more excited. Coming out of those like conference championships, you get the Niners, you get the Chiefs, teams we see a lot in this, really just the Super Bowl. They've both played a lot of high level football, made it this far in the playoffs before. But as you go a week without football, you get more and more excited for this game. So that's kind of where I'm at. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, I got to see my friend producer Jordan Klein yesterday and attend a basketball game.
Wow.
Things are lovely. Got to go see the Kobe statue, which just got unveiled, and everybody was going bonkers for that thing. So yeah, overall, really good times over here on this end. But hopefully we're going to win $1 million, if not us, for somebody out there listening to this live or after the fact. I know a lot of people have their Super Bowl parties to attend, are going to be listening throughout the day. So I'll always keep that a little bit, some good context to have as we're working through this slate for sure. We're presented by Owner's Box. We'll talk about them a little bit later. They've been an awesome sponsor for us throughout this entire season. If you want to get a head start signing up over there for Super Bowl Sunday, do so in that link that Jordan Klein is going to throw into chat or at the one in the video description box below. We love that site. Being able to have the Superflex idea for an entire NFL season, well, they're going to have some awesome stuff for baseball as well. So coming down the pipeline, Owner's Box, something you want to have in your portfolio of places to play. But Matt, I'm just going to dig right in from the get-go. Who wins the football game today?
I personally like the Niners, just
Same.
a little more complete in my opinion, but obviously tight spread for a reason. This should be a really competitive game. And at this point, Chiefs in the playoffs, it wouldn't surprise me if they won at all. But I kind of think this is a little more defensively sound with both teams excelling on that side of the ball. But, it's hard to fade either quarterback at the same time. So I'm going to tentatively side with the Niners and look at the under. But what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you where the under is a little bit appealing. I mean, obviously we're playing where you want to build out certain scripts that you see, which is always a great idea in context, like in the back of your head, like, oh, yeah, this is the way I see the game playing out. But in actuality, it doesn't always translate that way when you're building out your lineups. It's just kind of a good talking point, but not necessarily something that's actionable. What is actionable is the lineup generator, the Sims tool, things that we're going to be talking about and utilizing here on this show right now. And have you built out a bunch of lineups in the Sims tool already, Matt?
Yes, I have. I got, with the extra time, been playing around with the Sims tool, looking forward to this game for a while now.
Well, let's dig into the quarterbacks because we do go position by position here on this slate. Now, my highest flex or captain play is Patrick Mahomes in the flex, which I find to be a little bit interesting because I have almost no captain ownership of him. And that's fascinating in and of itself. Christian McCaffrey, my highest owned captain. Anybody who has listened to Matt or I this entire season, that should not surprise you that would be something that would come from my end here, having McCaffrey up top a majority of the time. I think he will be the most popular captain, even though, yeah, you're using a gob of salary in order to attain that. But Patrick Mahomes today, San Francisco, didn't look phenomenal in that first half. And both of these teams have had blemishes, but defensively, both sound as can be. But I think I trust Mahomes to be able to go out and sling it a little bit more here than Purdy. I think Purdy, obviously, if San Francisco finds success here, I think they really, really rely on the running game there with Christian McCaffrey ad nauseum. But how do you feel about Mahomes here in this spot? I have him currently in 55% of my lineups in the flex.
Yeah, I'm even a little north of that, just following the Sims. And we see this a lot with the quarterbacks sometimes and just the elite skill position players. And I've noticed this with the Sims, and I think it kind of backs up an intuition I've had where it's Mahomes, it's Purdy. These are two elite players. Sometimes one way you can just gain leverage is by playing them in the flex rather than the captain. So you're sort of flipping the build. So just contextually, he fits that mold a little bit. But there are other elite studs on this slate. There are studs at cheaper price points, which leads you to a more, I think, complete build. If you were to like captain a Debo or something, gives you more opportunity to use that salary in the flex at other positions. But as far as Mahomes goes, he's also tricky to play in the captain spot because he spreads the ball around so much. So, and he gets there in multiple ways, whereas the 49ers are pretty concentrated as an offense. And I think more likely overall to reach a ceiling performance just because of the concentration. Whereas Mahomes, it could be a little bit with his legs, one touchdown here, and then Pacheco does some work, Kelce does some work. And in a low-scoring game environment, that just his price might be prohibitive enough where you want to play him in the flex rather than the captain. So that's kind of my intuition, and the projections seem to back it up.
Yep, and that's where I'm a little bit nervous about the Brock Purdy exposure that I have currently at 26% in the flex, and only 4% do I have him up in the captain slot. So feels like a player that I'm going to be undercutting on today's slate, which feels like crap because I'm an Iowa State guy. I'm obviously going to be cheering for the 49ers from a fan perspective, from a betting perspective, and obviously just from a you know the deal, the narratives here at Kansas City. Going to be publicly backed here in some capacity because of the you-know-who's, but don't want to say that on the internet. You never know what's going to happen. So want to fire it up, though. Brock Purdy, I'm just not getting there here at the moment. How about you?
I'm slightly underweight to Purdy, and I think just having done this show with you throughout the whole year, I think you're a little more aggressive than me being, a coward sometimes, playing this a little even across the board.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's a perfect way to end it. The cowardly lion that is Matt Gajewski.
I mean, sometimes you take just more aggressive stances, and that's not good or bad. You are willing to live with the risk, and that's just the way it is.
Because I'm the Tin Man. Yeah. You're, and there it is. There's Wizard of Oz analogies for frickin' 10 a.m. in the morning. Continue on, Matt.
I hate that movie. But yeah, anyway.
Put him up.
So I'm coming in slightly underweight to Purdy, and it's just so much of his skill position players do the lifting for him. And I actually like Purdy's skill set. I think he can run more than he's shown, and perhaps we see more of that like we did in some of the playoff matches. But ultimately, like between him and Mahomes, I still think you have more paths to a higher score with Mahomes. So kind of the way I'm playing this is a lot of the skill position players in the captain, spraying and praying those, prefer Mahomes in the flex to Purdy, and they're at similar price points. But if you're playing like a stud and captain, one of the QBs, you're running out of salary quickly. So one of the things I just noticed in my lineups is having to choose between Mahomes and Purdy. So that's, I think, why I'm ending up with a little bit less Purdy compared to Mahomes. Mahomes, I mean, throughout the playoffs, his rushing changes. He's averaging 26.5 rushing yards in just playoff games alone. So the scrambling increases. Their passer over expectation is enormous. With Purdy, you kind of have to hope McCaffrey's not doing McCaffrey things. And then the production spread enough between Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo that not one of them outscores him individually, which is very likely in a game like this. We know Debo is going to be a focal point of the offense. Ayuk runs into the tough matchup, and Kittle a little banged up, but he still has like monster ceiling games as well. So I also think one of the skill position players just could outright outscore Purdy. And if that happens, he's not going to be the guy you want for this team. So just when we have to make decisions, he ends up being a guy that has been left out of some of my lineups.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about George Kittle today. This feels like a guy that I am going to be jamming. Right now, we be John, that's for sure. I know the Bob Marley movie's coming out, so wanted to throw that in for the people as well. Quarterback, obviously, anytime we're talking Showdown, you're going to run into a bunch of quarterbacks. But if you're building out one lineup, I think it's hard to avoid a Patrick Mahomes. I think it's a little bit easier to get away from a Brock Purdy for sure. There's obviously some leverage to take into account. But right now, looking at our tools, looking at the NFL, the Top Stacks Showdown tool that we have over here at Stochastic, definitely something where I see Mahomes, top score here 13.3% of the time, captain ownership just 8.4%. I think for me, that would be a far more comfortable click than going to Brock Purdy. So yeah, underweight to Brock. Sounds like you're going to be doing the same thing here. Anything else you want to discuss at quarterback?
Yeah, just aside from my personal intuitions, our tools back this up. We have Patrick Mahomes, and I think you mentioned this, positively leveraged. Brock Purdy comes in negatively leveraged, which also just kind of backs up some of the takes we've had previously. The only other thing I'll say is with Mahomes, you do see positive leverage in the flex more so than the captain. So again, if you're running sim stuff, which, I mean, you can do a lot of tweaking things. Like if you want to run more Mahomes and be a little more aggressive, you absolutely can in our tools. But I think that's why we get more of him in the flex. He's positively leveraged there, negative in the captain, whereas Purdy's slightly negative across the board.
Yeah, somebody just said, well, first off, Chris Williams gifting 5 subs. This guy is an absolute monster every single time I log in for NBA Live before lock, for NFL Live before lock, for MLB during the course of the season. He's always dropping in subs for the people. We really appreciate you, Chris, throughout this NFL season, being a part of us here. with NFL Live Before Lock, because you're just extremely generous. So I wanted to give you a special shout out, Chris. Everybody who gets those badges, give him some love there in the chat as well. And then somebody else put into the chat, anybody playing use check, I think use check gets a touchdown. You should bet that instead of playing him in DFS. Let me just throw that out there for you. And if you want to find the best line for that, head over to OddsShopper. OddsShopper is a phenomenal spot that, is obviously, it's not even like brother or sister company. It is one in the same here. Stochastic and OddsShopper. OddsShopper is Stochastic. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. Great stuff, friends. But go check out Kyle's use check over there. And speaking to that Brock Purdy narrative, he should be rushing a little bit more. But one of our better plays at the top of the board, the Positive EV tool, which is the holy grail of OddsShopper over there, under 12.5 rushing yards, still at even money, still something that is ever so slightly positive EV. So taking a look at Brock Purdy, taking a look at some of those top plays, Debo Samuel under 16.5 rushing yards at even money. Pretty interesting here as well. We assume he will get a handoff or two, but it kind of capped there. That could be something where 16.5 still has some really good value at the top of that tool there as well. So check out all of those things and use the Super Bowl promo that we have going for 58% off any package that you have going here. Again, this wasn't even part of my read. It's just simply something that I wanted to throw in for the people. Promo code Super Bowl when you sign up over at OddsShopper right now. Get 58% off any package. Awesome stuff for sure. Let's head to running back, where I think I say this every single time he's on any slate, and he's on today's slate. Christian McCaffrey, Gajewski. He is good at football.
Very good at football. And the conversation with him, I think, is more so, is he the point of leverage you want to take? Otherwise, cash games, people are going to be playing everything today. If you're playing like small stuff, small tournaments, family pools, friend pools, whatever it may be, like put McCaffrey in your lineup, captain, flex, whatever you want to do. But if you're playing the large field stuff, I think you do run into the conversation, do we want to fade him? And to me, I still think the answer is no, as crazy as that is. I personally would rather find other ways to get different. And a lot of this is just slate dependent. With the Chiefs, you're going to have 6 receivers to choose from. You're going to have backup tight ends that play, 3 running backs that might potentially be in play, pending Jerick McKinnon's status, who I think does play in this game. But I would personally rather just spray with those other players rather than, fade McCaffrey and play a bunch of other studs. The matchup's not great. I mean, both these defenses are elite. You kind of just run into some of these problems deep into the playoffs. But at the end of the day, who is receiving the most opportunity, the safest opportunity? I mean, go look at touchdown props. Who's most likely to score in this game? The answer for everything is McCaffrey. And the price is exorbitant. But again, with the Chiefs on the other side, and even some of the use check players on the 49ers, I wasn't running into a lot of problems getting him. I personally think Kittle's underpriced. So there are definitely ways to do it, and I think to feel good about it too. Where are you at it? Maybe the better question is where are we in our portfolios? Because I'm running 150 today, not sure what you're doing, but I'm still pretty heavily exposed.
I think I'm running 210, which is a fun way to go out with a bang here to finish out the NFL season. Playing a lot of stuff today. Obviously, it's been a really good start to the NBA season for me. Good first half of the season, and I ended up accumulating some tickets for some things, playing in some single entry stuff, playing in 150. Gonna have a lot of lineups going. I don't think I'm alone with that. It's kind of like a good goodbye and good riddance to NFL Showdown for me for the season, because I had a slightly profitable NFL during the regular season there. Actually had some really good scores with the Sims tool and the $3. If I had those in the main iteration of a couple of those Showdown slates, I would be ecstatic with my results there, but had a worse ROI in Showdown than what I had in the for the regular slate. So that's not out of the ordinary for me. That seems to be the case every single year. And the Showdown, without that, I had a $4,000 and a $5,000 win for Showdown for in the $3 towards the end of last year. Perfect timing too. Perfect timing before tax season. It is what it is. Would have flipped the calendar in January. That would have been a little bit better. But Christian McCaffrey, back to the point at hand. Phil Senzig, he said, bet you are making with the highest odds, $1.99 super chat. Currently, first touchdown Christian McCaffrey is plus 400. And I've been looking at this all week long, and it hasn't really moved. And I'm surprised, but you can get this at DraftKings. You can get this at Caesars. You can get this at a lot of places. Sharp books have this plus 300. I'm looking at a lot of spots with plus 300 for it. You're getting 4-1 on Christian McCaffrey to get in the box. He is by far the most likely touchdown scorer for San Francisco. And you obviously are fading the big play other places, but McCaffrey is going to be on the field every snap, besides maybe the only scenario I could think is like he has a 75-yard run, gets knocked down at the 2, and they switch in Eli Mitchell for a goal line carry. Like that's the only way in my mind, outside of injury, that Christian McCaffrey isn't on the field with every goal line touch, every opportunity. So 4-1 Christian McCaffrey, I'm in love with as a first touchdown scorer. That's currently the highest number that I have for anything. Have a couple of like Noah Gray with George Kittle parlays going that are like 6-7-1, but individual bets plus 400. I'm in love with that. Is that something that tickles your fancy, Gajewski?
Yeah, that's a pretty good number, I think, first touchdown score. Not something I usually bet. And I'm in illegal states. I don't have the same menu of props available to me up here. But yeah, that seems pretty good.
Well, you could jump over to Prize Picks too as well. If you guys want to jump into Prize Picks streets, that is something that is also on my sheet that we can definitely talk about, because a lot of opportunities to jump into those markets, and they have gotten really good numbers, very, very comparable to that of what you're looking at in other places for some of those touchdown markets. Not nearly as bad as they were, at the inception of the Red Devils and Green Goblins. Yes, that is a thing I just said out loud at my place of my place of work. But anywho, Christian McCaffrey for DFS, I currently have 40% of him in the flex, and I have 38% of him in the captain. So I am more than double his current captain ownership, which that should be fun. That should be fun. 8.1% captain optimal percentage. Rashee Rice coming in. George Kittle coming in with the most. And oh boy, we will talk about George Kittle for sure. Anything else with McCaffrey? Are you clicking on Eli Mitchell here on the San Francisco side?
I do not have more than a sprinkling of him. He's not only, I mean, he might play 0 snaps, which is actually in the range of outcomes in a game like this, just the magnitude of it, but he's not like $200 either. So you're paying for a player that might get a 0, which is not something that I'm typically in the business of doing. So just a sprinkling of Eli Mitchell, and that's because I'm running 150.
That's fair. Yeah, I have 1%. That's fun.
Yeah, I'm at 2.
There you go. Double me. Congratulations. Yeah, it's not nearly as egregious as playing a backup quarterback, but I think yeah, the Elijah Mitchell thing is going to be very, very thin today. He's got negative leverage at like 0% captain ownership, which is hilarious to me because, like, how could you be lower than 0 at the moment? But tools are not in love with him. That's for sure. How did the tools feel about Isaiah Pacheco, you might ask? He's obviously the featured back here for Kansas City. I'm not going to say I'm worried, but Jerick McKinnon, we'll be seeing the actives and actives before the game. Jerick McKinnon, we know his passing game prowess. That's kind of been the long third down role for Clyde Edwards-Helaire here with this offense. Been worked in a little bit here, but there's no doubt that if Pacheco has a good game here, Kansas City has a really good chance to succeed. His utility ownership, sitting around 32.8%. His utility optimal, higher than that, 35%. Some decent leverage to be getting to an 8K Isaiah Pacheco. He's another one of those guys that's in mid-30s of my lineups here right now in the flex, getting to a little bit more than his 7.6% captain ownership. I have 8% of him there, so ever so slightly above. How are you feeling about Pacheco here in this spot against a formidable 49ers defense?
Yeah, I like them, and I think that, they've shown cracks. We saw Green Bay exploit them. We saw Detroit have success on the ground against them. I think the path of least resistance for the Chiefs is on the ground, which works right into the hands of Pacheco. The real question is, what do you think the workload's going to be? And I personally think it's going to be healthy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just not a very talented player. I don't think they wanted to use him, but the injury to Jerick McKinnon just forced him onto the field for a handful of snaps. McKinnon's role, I don't think, is going to be substantial. Maybe some third downs, potentially an end zone play here and there. But Pacheco's been, I think, very good, even considering he's been injured, and we only saw him get 2 limited practices this week. To me, I think they're just keeping him in bubble wrap ahead of the biggest game of probably his career. So I'm not expecting any limitations with Pacheco. I think it's going to be full workload. And his receiving role's been awesome since McKinnon was out.
It's got to be a little bit of game flow dependent, right? Like Jerick McKinnon,
yeah, for sure.
It always feels that way to me. And it feels like a cop-out when you're giving analysis on something where it's like, hey, have a stand. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like I would change my Jerick McKinnon exposure based on the score entering the fourth quarter. Like that, for me, if they're down 2 scores, I think Jerick McKinnon is on the field more than Isaiah Pacheco. Otherwise, anything within like a score, I think Pacheco is just the guy who's going to play 75, 80% of snaps, and there's really no way around it. I think McKinnon is there as an insurance policy in addition to a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who will probably get a bulk of the actual carries in the event that something were to happen to Pacheco. But just looking at it in a vacuum, it's so hard to get away from playing Pacheco here in this spot at 8K. Again, if I were rolling out one lineup and I was trying to figure out which Kansas City pieces to have, it's weird to say like Mahomes with Pacheco, but like kind of leaning in that direction in this one single entry lineup that I'm looking at for the $58. And I think this is something that I might end up rolling with. Not that Pacheco is going to have that passing game involvement the way that you would want, but I don't know what it is about his 8K number. I just keep landing on it in hand builds as I'm working through it. And then obviously he's somebody who is showing up in my highest simulated ROI lineup in the Sims tool. He's a guy who's showing up a great deal for me in that flex spot. So it's hard for me to really poke any holes in Pacheco outside of like, obviously you want to mix in some cheapies here. And that's where CEH, Jerick McKinnon at $200 here. I think they're both guys to be getting to more than like an Eli Mitchell, but not showing up a whole heck of a lot for me. How about you?
Some Jerick McKinnon, like a decent amount. And to me, it's just, he's $200. If you play him, you can basically do whatever you want in lineups. But it's not safe. Like, we don't even know if the guy's going to be active. With that said, I mean, he practiced really in full, no limitations for McKinnon. And it's a groin injury. They kept him on the shelf for this moment. So I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play a role. And it's not going to be sizable in my opinion, but at $200, it doesn't need to be. He's the avenue that gets you all the studs you want in your lineup. And I don't think he's going to come in as heavily owned as maybe some other 200 players do on slates like this, because we have options. There's other guys in this range that are going to get some ownership because McKinnon's not the only player. And I don't care the way you use him. Like use him with CH, use him with Pacheco, use him with Mahomes. He's $200. It doesn't matter. All those guys can still have good games, and McKinnon can pay off his salary because it's the stone minimum.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, getting to him is fine. I think the use check versus CEH thing, considering they're $1,200, $1,800 respectively, if you're leaving salary on the table, looking in that range, trying to hit on the right one there is kind of important, or potentially could be important. But yeah, I'm with you where $200 does a lot for you, I suppose, but maybe I'll give him a little bit of a boost here and get myself to a little bit more. Cause right now, 4% doesn't, well, I guess that's something. Probably want to be filling out a lot more salary though in some of those builds than what I have. Like leaving 2K on the table with $200 Jerick McKinnon doesn't feel all that appealing.
Yeah, it depends what you're playing. If you're playing Milli Maker style large field stuff,
yeah,
then I think you could probably do something with a salary that's still unique and use it somewhere else. I mean, that's basically the crux of everything. It's like, what are you playing? That's going to dictate a lot of how your lineup should be built and the plus EV at the end of the day when they are built. So yeah, there's definitely certain contests where I prefer him. And I'm not even coming in with that much McKinnon. A lot of it is just, like Noah Gray's 1,600 more. You have players in the 2K range like Watson. In a lot of lineups that have McKinnon, it's not that difficult to find your way up to somebody else in that range too. So for me, it's like a spray and pray approach rather than locking in on one guy like this. But with that said, right now I'm coming in with 20-ish% of him, slightly over that in the flex. So still pretty healthy.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty healthy number of Jerick McKinnon. My goodness.
Yeah, I might bring him down. We'll see.
That's a lot of Jerick McKinnon at the moment. Obviously, you have to make sure that he is active. If you were listening to this after the fact and you aren't seeing the actives and actives, I'll be sure that I tweet something out there. I know we're all going to be heading to our Super Bowl parties. We're all going to be hanging out, enjoying our last day of football in quite some time, for far too long. Unless, are you going to be grinding the UFL streets?
I don't know. I got to talk to Tom and the bosses. I mean, I watched every single snap last year, charted it, enjoyed the hell out of it, but it's not very popular. So I don't know if we're going to run it back.
All right. Well, we'll take a look. Matt Gajewski, he will be bringing you football in some capacity, I promise, very, very shortly after the end of this season, but also something that you should be checking out. You should have been using this entire NFL season already, is of course our sponsor, Owner's Box. They've got amazing tournaments going even today that are potentially not going to fill. Obviously, these ones are going to get closer to filling. It's a single game. It's the Super Bowl, but The $15 currently, 50K big game kickoff, 10K to first is just less than half full. So yeah, sitting at 49% full here for Owner's Box. If you sign up, all of those great things that we've been talking about all season long can still be yours. A max bonus amount up to $500. So $250 for a bonus after a $250 deposit. Get yourself up to that $500 in opportunity over at Owner's Box. You also get a lightning lineup ticket, another $5 contest ticket. Great stuff from Owner's Box. And I'm sure we'll be talking about them throughout the MLB season coming up here as well. But they've been such a great partner for us for this NFL season. And part of it is just, well, do you want to go to a site that hasn't been solved yet? Go to a site where we have Sims tools that can specifically work for you to help you make better lineups than other people over at Owner's Box. Well, then take advantage of it right now, especially if you do have that Sims tool in your back pocket to fire up as we're sharing it with you here on this stream. Owner's Box, they're amazing. They have an opportunity to get you, that $250 total deposit bonus, up to $500 you can have there. And again, it's not going to fill. These contests have not filled all season long. So Overlay is the best piece of advice I can give you to build, sustain, and keep profitable your bankroll. So check them out, ownersbox.com, or download the app. Great stuff as always. And thank you so much to them for their sponsorship of our little program in this YouTube neck of the woods. We appreciate you guys very, very much. Alrighty, y'all. Let's go to the wide receiver position where we got some decisions to make. That's for sure. Let's start with Debo Samuel, because he's 9,200 and he's the most expensive of the wide receivers. You've got Ayuk, you've got Rice, who is going to pull some ownership, that is for sure. But Debo is traditionally somebody that I love to get to. Traditionally somebody that I play a ton in DFS. Somebody that I traditionally have ad nauseum. But I have so much George Kittle today that it is just affecting how much Debo, how much Ayuk I'm going to be getting to up top here. And despite the fact that he has slightly positive leverage, I'm just not landing there the same way that the field is. How are you handling Debo Samuel, who's a Swiss Army knife, can do multiple things for the San Francisco team, but not that I'm worried about his snap share. Definitely coming off of being dinged up from 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago it is now. And I don't know. I kind of prefer all the skill position players just below him.
I have more Kittle than Debo as well, and I don't like it. And I've gotten myself in trouble in the past going through the Sims, boosting players that I think I have a better read on and losing money. So I have held fast, keeping Debo slightly below Kittle to this point, but I don't feel good about it, and I might end up changing this. They're pretty close. You know, for captain reference, right now I have Kittle just over 6%, Debo around 5%, and it's just a large spray and pray in that kind of range. And the same thing in the flex. It's slightly more Kittle, slightly more Debo, but with Debo, you know he's just a focal point of the game plan when they pass. You talked about the rushing earlier. I agree with you on the under, but he's going to get carries. He's likely to lead this team in targets, and he's often the first read for Purdy, whereas Kittle just isn't any of those things. And Kittle's also on the injury report. So the only real benefit, I think, to using more Kittle is ownership and pricing. There's about a 3K difference in the flex when you use Kittle, who's still on the field every single play, but your lineups look a little better. I don't know. I'm really struggling with this right now. Give me your read? Talk me through this.
All right. So Kansas City, I guess this is kind of like Shanahan is so sharp when it comes to just taking whatever the defense gives him. And correct. I think Ayuk has the difficult spot going up against McDuffie. We can agree on that. Yes.
I kind of think you see some L'Jarius Sneed.
Yeah, Sneed on Samuel, McDuffie on Ayuk. Either way you cut it.
Well, they're going to move Samuel. Like, Samuel's going to run on everyone.
Right. But overall, if you're going to be, it's going to be Reed helping out. It'll be to some capacity, Edwards as well. But I do think Edwards on Kittle is kind of the main thing to be paying attention to. Like, it could be Justin Reed as well. Justin Reed is a bottom 20 safety in PFF grading. Mike Edwards is somehow worse, 81st out of 95 qualified players here. And it's just one of those things. My friend Jordan Vanek, a guy who I've done many shows here, he was a guy that, I started off doing shows with here over at Stochastic, formerly Osmo there, right at the beginning of time. And he would always talk about Kansas City and their defensive alignments. And then I saw a little video that he posted on Twitter as well, where it was basically working through the exact same pre-notions that I had about this Kansas City defense. You want to attack these safeties. They're going to get matched up on Kittle the most, and Kittle is outrageously good. And whether it's blocking, whether it's catching, he can do whatever he needs to do to help this 49ers team win. With Snead and McDuffie, I do think that this is going to be pretty much the polar opposite of what you saw against Detroit, where the obvious weak link of Detroit was just attacking those corners ad nauseum with Samuel, with Ayuk, and they both had massive games, and Kittle went by the wayside. I think the exact opposite happens here. I think one of my favorite plays today is just alternate lines on Kittle, in addition to a 49.5 is the prevailing receiving yards number for him. I think these are both just smashes. I think you are going to run into the Kittle day. I think Kittle is a very live to win MVP here in this spot too, because it is just, this is a great Kansas City defense aside from the safety positions. Both of them are as weak as it gets in the NFL on any unit, and I want to go after it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He's not the first read, but he's a matchup nightmare when they decide to use him.
Yep.
It's just his skill set is so valuable in so many different areas. It's always tough to parse like a 49ers game plan. Do they use him to block more? Do they use check in that regard and then have Kittle attack those safeties? I mean, it makes sense, everything you laid out. It's just he also could block a lot and get 2 targets, which is in the range of outcome. And I mean, you have to know that coming in, which it's not good or bad. It's just he has a wide range of outcomes. What you hit on and what I want to highlight here is he does have an enormous ceiling. You get it at a cheaper price point, and you get it with some leverage because of the ownership projections on these guys. My real debate. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that there's only one guy. So the real debate is kind of like looking at the skill position players above him here too. But Kittle allows me to leave salary on the table. And then the highest owned player that I have not named Patrick Mahomes from Kansas City today, his name is not Travis Kelce. We'll get to the tight end position, but it is Rashee Rice, the most leveraged play in our tools at 7,600. And because of him and Kittle, I'm not getting to Ayuk and Debo nearly as much here in this spot. Would it shock me if 2 of the best wide receivers in football had phenomenal games? No, it would not shock me in the slightest. But Rashee Rice, he has been on the field. We were early to the party, thank God, talking through the Rashee Rice situation where it just made no sense. How are they not getting him on the field every single time? We, on this program, were able to get you guys ahead of the curve where he was playing 93% of snaps week 15, and that has continued here, 93% there last week, or 2 weeks ago now, against Baltimore. This is a guy that obviously has rapport, and he is the go-to guy from the wide receiver core, the only guy you can really feel comfortable about from the Kansas City side. And then the price point, 7,600, cheaper, allows me to leave some salary on the table, basically remove a Samuel or an Ayuk and just plug and play Rashee Rice, leaving salary and avoiding duplication on the table. The most leveraged play in the utility, the most leveraged play at the captain spot in our tools. I'm in love with Rashee Rice today, going up against San Francisco. How about you?
Yeah, I think he's solid, and everything you laid out makes sense. And I think there's some additional kind of context that could make a difference for him. You look at the strength of like the 49ers defense on the other side. This team has awesome linebackers, like Dre Greenlaw is amazing. Fred Warner is obviously one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and they defend the tight end position better than almost any other team. I believe they were 6th fewest fantasy points allowed at the position. There's going to be some noise there. But you can dive into the individual tight ends they face too. Those 2 are awesome at defending the position. And you have a little bit less resistance when you look at the corners. So if you want to just do that exercise, Rashee Rice could be a beneficiary in that regard too. And we know a lot of people are going to click Kelce. So you already have the added benefit of just the ownership leverage you're gaining with a guy like Rice. He's in a similar price range to the 49ers receivers, and it, I think, is a more condensed offense. But again, this comes down to the leverage you're gaining with Rice. I like him quite a bit. He's a player I'm also going to be overexposed to just within the Kansas City offense.
Yep, going to be wild. Just like this could get wild. Matt, I've been underscoring this the entire show. I haven't brought it up once. Do you know what I'm referring to?
No.
There was a promise made. And a promise made in blood 2 weeks ago. That if we had 1,000 likes, that you would head to the fires of Mordor, that you would fight the good fight for the people of the lands. Yeah. And you would chug a Four Loko on this stream. Do you have said Four Loko?
I have one downstairs.
You need to go get it right now. You need to go get it right now. No. Don't do this. Chris Williams, he just said that if you do follow through on this promise that once again was made in blood. We shook Yes, it was. It was a blood oath, a sworn oath that you would give the people what they wanted, what they've been coveting, what they've been cherishing for all season long, and that is for their friend, Matt Gajewski, Tuna himself, to chug a Four Loko on this stream.
Jeepers.
Yep. So go ahead and go grab that for us quick. I'll catch up on Super Chats. You want to go get that for us?
I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe.
I think it's time. Look at Jordan Klein. He's so giddy. He's just like the Joker when he just came to life.
My heart rate immediately elevated.
Yeah, you should. You should. Oh man, look at the chat. Can we get this like count up over 600? If we get over 600, you have to go downstairs. You just have to. There's no choice. What kind of Four Loko is it?
I don't know. It
Because
looks like an American flag.
Not the victim. No, the people. The people gave their 1,000 likes of approval on the last show.
When I saw, I was at 996, but I also didn't check after.
Yeah, guess what? It got to 1,000. So don't you try to pull that. Don't you try to pull that stunt, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go downstairs quick.
I'm going to decide in 5 minutes if I'm going to do this.
Nope, you're going to do it right now as I talk a little bit of BetMGM. Again, there's so many great offers and promotions that are going on throughout the entire industry at this point in time. You can take advantage of this or that. And basically what it comes down to is you want to be utilizing OddsShopper and you want to be utilizing a market-based approach, which is just finding the best sports book with the best odds for the plays you want to make and playing them there as opposed to the other place. You go into a grocery store. You don't want to be laying, you don't want to be paying $5 for something that in another aisle is $4, right? Well, same thing exists here with sports betting. That's for sure. Bet 5, get $158 in bonus bets over at BetMGM. If you don't have BetMGM in your repertoire, I'm looking at the positive EV tool right now. 2 or 3 different plays that are popping up at BetMGM that aren't popping up at other places. Now, utilizing that market-based approach, you get BetMGM, and it's a super low price point to jump in and get 3 bonus bets from them, a $50, a $50, and a $58 bonus bet. That is 3 separate bonus bets just for depositing $10 or more, betting $5 on anything in the link, and utilizing those bonus bets today for the big game. So if you're looking for a little extra ammunition, hot and fresh out, well, we can't say he's bad. Bet 5, get $158 in bonus bets, only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. We just got news. Jerick McKinnon expected to play in the Super Bowl. That seems like it matters. Matt, did you go get your Four Loko?
No.
Why do you hate us?
I don't. I love you guys. Let's talk this Jerick McKinnon stuff.
Yep, Jerick McKinnon is going to be playing football, but I think everything we talked about before applies. Good to know he's going to be active, that you can keep that exposure built in. I think the other important part is understanding that, like, there is a lot of risk that he doesn't see the football field in some capacity, but I am of the mind that if they are down 2 scores, he is your come-from-behind back. He has been for years. He has the rapport. He's obviously going to be fresh to some extent here. Obviously, I don't think this is going to be some lingering deal. I don't think that they would utilize him with a groin injury if he was not 100% in the Super Bowl. So Jerick McKinnon, I will have some. That is for sure. How about you?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to change it. I don't really care about the trailing stuff either because he's $200. Even if we see Pacheco have a long run and he needs a breather for a play, I expect that to be McKinnon. And if he has 2 or 3 of those where he ends up getting the work, that could be enough just right there to pay off a $200 salary.
All right. Glad we talked about that. Now, I also got this super chat. I must talk about it as well. Chris Williams, $5. Four Loko equals 50 memberships. That's $150 and easily pays for it. Do it for us, the people, the fans. Last NFL game, I'm a man of my word, Matt. Now, it's not just the people's heart and souls that will be affected if you don't follow through on your promise that was made in blood, but it is now their pocketbooks as well. The opportunity for them to be given what is rightfully theirs, $150 in YouTube memberships. Are you going to withhold on the people for this promise that you made in blood, or are you going to be a man of your word? That's basically what we're going to say.
There seems to be some gray in this promise that was made, because I don't recall getting to 1,000 likes on the stream. It was 996. Then we signed off, and it was not determined whether it had to be live or post-lock where this could potentially be redeemed. So I did not have the Four Loco next to me ready to do this because I thought we'd finish at 996.
I'm a loser till I win the Milli member for 11 months. Four Loco time, Matt. Love this show. We love you too.
Gracious.
Matt, I don't know why you're doing this. We're going to go out with the biggest whimper in the history of NFL Live before lock it. It's all going to be your fault, and I'm never, ever, 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 ever. No, that's not true. I'm definitely going to still talk to you. That wouldn't stop me.
Thank you.
I need you for college basketball. I need you badly for college basketball, especially come March, because you know how much I've looked at college basketball this season? Zero. Absolutely not at all. I just know Wisconsin sucks. Why does your team suck?
Yeah, I don't know. 4 straight losses is tough, especially when you have to lose to Rutgers.
It's not great, Bob. Not great. All right. Let's finish out the wide receiver position because there are other guys to talk about down here. We've got Juwan Jennings. We got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who I swear to God, if this is MVS day, I am never going to hear the end of it. He has shown signs of life. That's the nicest thing I can say about him. He has owned my soul for 3 years, basically, or 2 years. Sky Moore, we've got active, assumed to be active here. He was a full participant here the last week. Good stuff to see him back in action, although how much does he see the field? And then McCole Hardman. There's a part of me that thinks if you're trying to figure out who's going to be the odd man out, McCole Hardman might end up he might be inactive for this one. That would make my life a lot easier because I know I've tried to make him a thing at random times. But Richie James, he's definitely got to be out there for punt returning. I know that's something that Hardman has done once upon a time. Excuse me, not just punt return, kick returning in some capacity. Want to make sure that I'm not just saying something there because I know that was a hang up for the Samuel stuff. So wanted to make sure that I specified. I do think Richie James needs to be out there. That has been something Hardman has done in the past, but I think he could end up being odd man out if they make Sky more active. You can't have 48 wide receivers on the roster, but Kansas City will try. Who are some of your favorite targets down here amongst the cheapies?
I think the answer has to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
I know it is, and it sucks.
It's honestly, it's Justin Watson if you're willing to he's not that different in price. So Watson, I think, is probably the safest. MVS's routes and targets have ebbed and flowed. Last time we saw him on the field, he did participate in 50 of 52 routes. So I think it's going to be close between him and Watson today. I don't have a strong feel on which one leads the team. Between the pairing in targets, routes, I would tentatively want to try to buy low on Watson. But MVS, coming off like an actual pretty decent game, but the guy also hasn't seen more than 5 targets in any contest this year. You're kind of just hoping this route share we saw last game is sticky. It's hard. I kind of think it will be when you just look at the alternatives they have in the biggest game of the year. Yes, Rashee Rice is going to play a ton. Watson's useful for things like blocking, but then it's not going to be Justin Ross. Mecole Hardman's played himself out of a position. Kadarius Toney's not going to be active. Sky Moore was horrific when he was on the field before getting hurt. Now he's coming off an injury that's put him on IR for multiple weeks. How much Sky Moore do we really see? I don't think it's going to be a ton. So I'm trying to play mostly Watson and Marquez Valdes-Scantling in this range with just little sprinklings of the other guys.
Yep, I'm with you. I think Justin Watson has positive leverage, and that's useful to some extent. And, obviously he's the cheapie amongst these guys that I think I feel the most comfortable getting to. Sky Moore, if he's active, I think just having a little bit in 150 makes sense. It's so hard to imagine that I would utilize him in 20 max or in 3 max or in anything max because of Sky Moore I have no idea. It's not like he was seeing the field some ridiculous metric ton even before getting dinged up. He had been one of the more disappointing guys in best ball for those streets, but 24% of snaps week 14, not getting dinged up. Week 15, 17%, but yes, did get dinged up. He was starting to see less and less of the field as is. So coming back, I doubt he would be somebody that would get utilized in some massive capacity. But as we jump over to tight end here, anything else from a wide receiver?
I don't think so. I think we hit on everyone who's viable. I agree with you on Jennings. I think he's fine. A little overpriced given his role, but you could use him as a leverage piece if you want to for San Fran. I don't plan on getting to the Chris Conleys, Ronnie Bells, players that may or may not be active, that may or may not see a snap today. I think those are like Milli Maker style plays if you even want to get there, which don't think it's a good idea.
Absolutely. Smash that like button, everybody. Let's get to tight end. Now, I've talked about people that I've liked. I've talked about people I haven't liked to some extent. Obviously, the Brock Purdy one, I love him as a person. I will be cheering for him as an Iowa State guy, but the data, the tools have me pointing away from getting to him at the same rate the field is. Another guy that is very true for, and it's really hard to bake in, first off, the last couple weeks, and secondly, the Taylor Swift effect, is this Travis Kelce fellow, who is also very good at football. However, we're talking about him being 10-2. We're talking about him with negative leverage. We're talking about him with massive utility optimal, but somebody that I just think ends up getting steamed because of his performance the last 2 weeks, and that is so hard to bake into the data here. I am below on Travis Kelce by a considerable margin in the flex. I'm almost there in terms of captain ownership, and I'm hoping that's some kind of like a life hedge where it's like, if Travis Kelce goes for that apocalyptic 2-touchdown, 150, ridiculous outing that we know he's capable of, at least I will have some captain shares, and it's easier for me to get to those than it is for me to just sit there with the utility optimal and just hold hands with 55% of the field or something ridiculous that is possible of happening here. How do you look at Travis Kelce for this big game? Because he has narratives swirling around him. He has public backing, but does this show out in DFS today? That is yet to be seen. I think it kind of does, though.
I'd rather play Rashee Rice. Kelce,
Same.
I'm certainly coming in underweight to the field on. It's a pricing thing. Projection difference between Rice and Kelce, I don't think is enough to warrant the extra salary you have to spend on him. And the matchup is horrific for Kelce. The one thing I think you really fade is, yeah, Greenlaw and Fred Warner are awesome backers, but there's still this absurd connection with Mahomes. And I guess to bring it back to Mahomes as a QB, he's extremely mobile, not exactly like a Lamar Jackson, but he's excellent at using his legs to create time in the pocket. And when things break down, Kelce's also been a master of finding soft zones, areas in the field where Mahomes can find him as he's using his legs to create time. And it's been a connection they've had for a long time. It's hard to put something like that into projections, but it does show up on the field quite a bit. So I'm kind of scared fading that element of Travis Kelce's game. But if you just go based on volume, pricing, and matchup, it's hard for me to click Kelce's name over Rashee Rice and at least a meaningful portion of my portfolio of lineups.
I'm so with you. It is, we will be having the same pain in our hearts if Travis Kelce goes and just sets this world on fire, because, yeah, it'll be a problem. It'll be a definite problem for me if Travis Kelce is the guy that you have to have today. Wouldn't be surprised by it. I mean, it's freaking Travis Kelce. So everything you said is extremely valid, where, yeah, he has the rapport with him. He finds the soft zones. He finds everything on the field that really, there's nothing bad to say about him. It's just, what is his chances of succeeding relative to what his ownership is going to be? And I just feel like it's going to be higher potentially than just about any other player. I think we get to lock, he could be the guy that just blows you away with what his ownership is, potentially. But let's go to George Kittle, because this is the guy that I am making the exact opposite approach, where George Kittle is in a huge portion of my lineups. And the captain optimal, him and Rashee Rice, 12.2 and 12.7. They are your most likely captain optimals. They allow you to fit in at least one quarterback or both. They allow you to fit in Christian McCaffrey. They allow you to fit in a Travis Kelce. Lots of ways that George Kittle, a captain, ends up working out for you. I am way over the 8.5% captain ownership that he currently has. I'm way over on his 28.3% utility ownership right now. How good is George Kittle looking at the tools? Well, I think he's the best play on the slate today. Talk me out of it, or don't. That'd be better.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk you out of it. I'm definitely not going to be quite as aggressive, especially in the captain spot, but playing a lot of him at flex. A lot of this is just risk tolerance. But you hit on one key thing with Kittle that I think is very important to highlight. When you mentioned the probabilities of being the top captain, that's not the top scorer. And oftentimes you don't need the top scorer to have the optimal lineup. It's about what you can use with the extra salary when you use a guy like Kittle in the captain spot. And that's not even to disparage his ceiling individually. It's an amazing ceiling. But the salary you save affords you an extra stud rather than maybe playing a Jerick McKinnon or being forced to play like a kicker in a defense. You could get up to an extra stud with the salary you save with Kittle. So I think it's kind of twofold. It's not just him as an individual, but what he allows you to do.
Yep. I'm so 100% with you there. So yay, George Kittle. We're both on board there. The rest of the tight end position as we're rounding out this show, smash the like button, of course, is Dusty, Noah Gray, Charlie Warner, Braden Willis. I do have a play on over 10.5 receiving yards for one Noah Gray. So that's an enjoyable experience for everybody involved. He's going to see the field nearly like 40-50% of the time, running a route on almost all of the dropbacks for Mahomes when he is on the field. So being utilized as a pass catcher in this offense, even in 12 personnel. And well, obviously he's not going to get targeted the same way Kelce is, but it is what it is. He's just somebody to mix in at $1,800. That's a little bit different. I like getting to Noah Gray for DFS today. Don't have any in the captain, so don't even have to worry about that. As for the rest of these Dusty characters, I have 0. Anything stick out to you with the other ancillary tight ends?
Yeah, Noah Gray, you mentioned the snap counts and stuff. He's the most interesting at the price point. Routes still trail a lot of the receivers we talked about, and pretty significantly. So, I mean, just for reference, like MVS participated in 50 of 52 routes. Noah Gray was at 22. Like Justin Watson, 29 of 52. There's still, I think, better plays than Noah Gray. But if he ends up being the player you want to use, or maybe you think they attack this 49ers defense in a unique way with 2 tight ends, I have no problem with it. I would just prefer to get the receivers.
Yep, Noah Gray, 14% target share back-to-back weeks. That is useful. That is useful. Let's get ourselves over to kicker. Everybody's favorite kicker and defense. We'll round them in together. That is for sure. One thing the Sims tool definitely likes today, Gajewski, is the Chiefs' defense. Now, I haven't been the biggest proponent of defenses in Showdown until I was able to utilize the Sims tool and find just logical ways to utilize the defenses. I do think both of them come in a little bit underrepresented here, and my top ROI lineup has both the 49ers and Chiefs defense. I think anybody who runs the Sims tool unencumbered is going to run into some capacity. Like that is kind of going to be a leverage build, getting to both defenses or getting to the 49ers defense. I think, on the other side might be a little bit popular, but Chiefs defense for sure will not be popular, going to have leverage going their direction. How are you looking at them and the kickers here on today's slate to round out the show?
Like you, I've also had some trouble playing kickers and defenses in the past and trying to decipher when the right time to use them is. This year, I've faded a lot of defenses, and I think process-wise, it hasn't been a bad decision. It hasn't worked out a lot of time in these showdowns, but they've come up in price. They've come up in ownership. I don't think that's going to be the case today with everyone. I guess it's mainly you get more public money, even in DFS on a game like the Super Bowl, and people want to click the skill position players. So when I see their ownership on the back end of our site, see their leverage scores, I'm actually a little more enticed to play them than normal. I agree with you. I think the Chiefs are going to be a little more owned, and that makes sense to me, given how they played. But I have no qualms with the 49ers. They're a little more expensive, but it's another awesome spot for this defense, which we know can rush the passer and plays pretty decent defense in the secondary. So I have no problem with either. Interesting construction that you got both of them in your optimal lineup. And I think a lot of that would depend on the contest you're playing, because I imagine using 49ers and Chiefs in tandem is not going to be heavily owned.
Correct. And going back to a super chat that we had a little bit earlier, this is kind of when I wanted to fire it up, because again, we can go a minute or two over. We're not going directly to a lock time at 11 o'clock Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time here. We're going to have a couple hours. This is obviously going to be on the shelf for everybody to be able to watch, observe leading up to the big game before you go to your parties. So again, if you're listening to us after the fact, we appreciate you. But had the super chat from Steven Leibowitz, member for 34 months, our guy Steve. How viable is 0 QB today? Again, my top simulated ROI lineup is McCaffrey captain, both defenses, and no quarterback. That is a wild run out, don't you think?
Yeah, I imagine it's for larger field, but no problems with that. You're telling yourself a story in a lineup like that. You imagine it goes under. Just generally speaking, the public is probably going to play it the other way, going towards the over with Mahomes and Purdy and the studs. So you're gaining a lot of leverage. Not likely, but you don't need it to be likely. The off chance it hits, you're rich, Eric.
Yeah, that is true. Jake Moody, I will be also rich if he kicks lots of field goals, because it would appear he is showing up in nearly 40% of my lineups. Sims tool, very much a positive leverage opportunity to get to Jake Moody, positive ROI, simulated ROI. Those are all good things and things that you want. That is for sure. And I also want you all to just one more time, collectively with me, encourage Gajewski to get off his chair, go downstairs.
I'm not doing it.
Grab the 4 low. Chris Williams, $5 super chat. The deal was if I hit 1,000 likes, didn't say when or where. It did it about 15 minutes after the show ended. I even made sure to email a screenshot. So you've been fact checked, sir.
I will shotgun a Four Loko, but it can't be today.
Is it like grandma's birthday?
It's not grandma's birthday.
Is it like meet the parents day?
No. But I do have to get behind the wheel of a car.
Okay, let's not have the Four Loko go to Matt Gajewski. End of that conversation. We appreciate you though, Matt. We'll make sure that we'll make this happen. You owe
I will
us
do it.
because of
You've seen me
oath
do it before.
sworn in blood. But yeah, I don't want you driving a car. That'd be good. Continuing on, friends, smash the like button here as we round it out. Let's go through our favorite plays once more for the people to round out our lovely program. Again, you want to check out Owner's Box. You want to check out BetMGM. If you're 21 and over, if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Really great stuff throughout the show. Lots of offers to take advantage of today. Head to Stokastic.com. Check out the main page that we have going. Tons of offers for the Super Bowl if you're looking to sign up at a new book. But favorite utility play relative to ownership?
I'm going to do you a solid because I know who yours is. I think
nice.
My favorite utility, and honestly, you could use this for captain too, just a play I really like is Rashee Rice, using him as potential leverage off Kelce in a spot where he actually draws what I think is the easier matchup. Target share should be just fine. We know the routes are there.
Yep. I love getting to my favorite captain is going to be McCaffrey, but relative to ownership, it is definitely going to be Kittle for that and for the utility for sure. Is there anybody that you're terrified of? Travis Kelce is the very obvious answer for me.
We'll see where I come in on this throughout the day, but right now I'm a little concerned with my McKinnon being at 20%. It might be a little high. And then, of course, like having any sort of MVS is going to be a little scary too. But yeah,
That's
those two
true.
I would say.
Of course, my camera goes off at the very, very end of this because that's how it would work. That's hilarious. All right. Well, I guess it's just so my camera is so sad and disappointed that Matt Gajewski couldn't find the courage inside.
Courage.
No, he's being a responsible individual, and I appreciate you. Guys, that does it here for NFL Live Before Lock for the 23-24 NFL season. It's been a hell of a ride. This is the third year Matt and I have been lucky enough to do this together. We've had a blast. We've had some ups and downs, mainly whenever I use pop culture references. But smash the like button one last time, and let Matt log us off. Matt, any final words for the people?
Yeah, thank you guys who've been here all season long, even if this should just your first time tuning in. Appreciate you deciding to spend your morning, early afternoon with us. It means a lot. You allow Eric and I and everyone else on the team to do something that we love. Enjoy the game. Good luck. Hope we make some money. But yeah, have fun today, and we'll see you guys soon. Good luck.
Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. Follow me at Eric Lindquist. For Jordan Klein, for Matt Gajewski, I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck, everybody, in the Super Bowl. Last football game that matters until September. Let's enjoy it. Be safe. Be merry. Best of luck.